Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to talk about deep pots. These are called deep pots, and these have a couple of different types of plants in here. I have coffee. This is coffee arabica. This is a papaya plant right here, and these are caimito or star apple. These come in really, really handy if you're going to be growing plants that you're going to keep for a while, and you don't want to have to keep stepping them up from container to container. In other words, you would probably have to step a plant up in a small half the size pot probably within a couple of months, because you're going to have circling roots, and that can become an issue with some types of plants. It's a big problem with coffee, for example. Coffee plants really do not like to have a root that goes down and then ends up bending, and you have an L-shaped root. You end up with a really weak plant. So if you really want a nice coffee plant, you really want one that has a healthy root system. Now, with that said, keep in mind that if you're just growing in a container, and most people that grow coffee as a hobby in places where you typically don't grow coffee, or if you're not planning to put it in the ground, what you do is when you transplant, even if you were growing in a smaller pot, you just cut the taproot and the roots will spread out. But if you want to keep the integrity of a nice taproot, which is what you would want, and not an L-shaped taproot with coffee, what you would do is grow in a long, deep container. So that's the reason why a plant like this, coffee, which is sensitive for field planting, you want to make sure you have a really good, healthy root system. So that's one of the big benefits. But one of the questions that a lot of people ask me is, well, you know, I bought one of these from you and I had a little trouble getting it out. I squeezed the container and I pushed it through the bottom. And that's the last thing you want to do, because these are very sensitive, okay? Especially papaya. Papaya has very, very delicate and a very finicky root system. It does not like you to mess around with it. So we're going to focus today on how to take out one of these papaya plants, or you could apply that to any one of these other plants, whatever it could be. For example, back here, this is Soursop Seedling. Now, their root system is not delicate at all. You've got to be careful, but it's nothing compared to a papaya plant. So I'm going to show you guys how I remove them and how to plant this in, I would have liked to go into a 3-gallon pot, but I don't have one. So I have a 2-gallon pot. It's a little bit smaller, and it's not quite as deep. It's almost as deep, but I'll show you how to do it when I come back. All right, so here we go. We're going to take the papaya, and this variety is, this is a dwarf variety, actually. It's called Tainan 1. Tainan 1. And Tainan 1 is a very nice, sweet papaya that when you harvest it when it's green with just a little blush of yellow, just a teeny little bit of yellow. They actually harvest these when they're green, and they're quite sweet that way, and they just let them ripen for a couple of days. But the Tainan 1 is a wonderful dwarf type. What does that mean, dwarf? It means it grows very slowly compared to a typical, like let's say a solo. A solo is a very tall, pretty tall papaya. Now they're all eventually going to get tall, but they do have a moderate rate of growth compared to the other ones. And they start to set fruit very often when they're only about somewhere like around 3 feet off the ground, and they're already setting fruit. So I'm going to show you how we take this papaya out of here. And like I said, a lot of people think that, you know, you can squeeze it out of the pot, and I really wouldn't recommend that, because as I said earlier, you're dealing with a very shallow, not a shallow, but you're dealing with a very weak, delicate root system. So this pot, it's not my favorite, but it's a 2-gallon. I'd like to go to a 3-gallon. Also notice the depth, right? So the soil level is right about here, and I'm going to have to spread, and I don't like doing that, but I'm going to have to very carefully spread the roots out at the bottom a little bit. That should not affect it too badly. But if I could help it, I would like to get a pot that's a little taller, so that when this goes in, see my soil level's all the way up here? So I needed a little bit deeper pot. So it's a good idea that you don't even disturb the root system. In this case, I probably will spread it a little bit on the bottom, and I don't think it'll hurt it. But in your case, if you're going to do this, it's better not to mess around with the root system. Just get yourself a pot that's deep enough, okay, for the tube. I think that's a key element when you do this. Now, so what we're going to do is we're going to get the knife, and we're just going to very carefully slice down the side of the tube. Okay, don't cut yourself. Just come on down here. I know that seems like a waste of money because you're throwing away a lot of plastic, but believe me, when it comes to papaya, you do not want, and don't go too deep, just enough to cut through the plastic. All right, so I've cut through the plastic. I've separated the tube, and I'll show you how many roots actually it has. There's a nice amount of roots. Okay? So you can see here you've got some nice roots. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. All right, so now in the pot, I have some soil on the bottom, and it's important that you use potting soil, a good potting soil, something that's not going to be like a garden soil, because if you use garden soil or you just use something that's too water holding, if it's got too much water holding capacity and it doesn't drain right, you're going to have a dead papaya tree before you know it, because papaya really likes to be high and dry. So you want to keep them a little on the dry side. You don't want it to be wet all the time. Only true exception to that is, to some degree, a little more water when they're actually flowering and fruiting, because you want to have nice fruit. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to spread these on the bottom, just to, not really cutting them. Like I said, they don't like to be played with here. So I spread it a little bit, and I've gotten it down just about to the level of just a little bit below the rim of the pot. So that's good. It's right in the center. And now I've got my soil. And again, this is a good potting soil that I'm using. And if you'd like, you can put a little bit of fertilizer in here. You can use some organic fertilizer. There's already a little bit mixed in. So we'll go ahead. We did not really disturb the roots much. Got our nice fertilizer already mixed in. We've got some worm castings. We've got a little bit of kelp meal in there. We've got a little bit of bone meal. We've got a little bit of blood meal. So we got a really nice organic fertilizer. Now you don't want to compact it. You don't want to squash down too much, but you want to make sure that your plant is nicely planted in there. Okay. All right, so here you have your Tainan 1 papaya, which is already in the pot. I'll put a little stake on it, and in about 30 to 45 days, it'll be much healthier and bigger than it is right now. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it's just kind of small, right? But give it about 45 days, and you'll have a nice, beautiful, healthy papaya. Assuming you use good potting soil and you gave it that fertilizer that I recommended, you're going to have a beautiful, healthy plant. Another thing that's important is that you keep in mind that you may have to stake it. This one's got a little stake on it, and you could actually stake it right now. Okay. When you're ready to plant your papaya tree, it's not a tree actually, but when you're going to plant your papaya plant, cut it down both sides of your pot, separate the pot, plant it, and make sure it's high and dry. They do not like wet feet. One other thing, the papaya plant, generally when you grow from seed, the hybrids like these will give you about a 50-50 ratio of hermaphrodites and females, which is good. That's a good combination. Always order 2 plants whenever possible, because this way you have a really good chance of getting terrific quantities of fruit. So if you'd like to get some of these plants, I do have them available most of the time on my peppiesplants.com page. Okay? All right, that basically wraps it up. I hope you found this information useful. Go grow yourself some papayas, will you? Have a great one. Thank you.